Hello! So as the title says, this is part 2. If you want to hear our chat about Season 1 of The Mandalorian, then please click on that part first. Part 2 is about Season 2, and contains spoilers. You have been warned.
Chapter 9, The Marshal, it's written and directed by Jon Favreau, so again, you know, the main man behind it all, at the helm, penning it, and it encapsulates what's great about the overall series. You've got a East and Western vibe where he basically goes to a town to help them. He sort of butts heads with the local authority in a great turn from Timothy Olyphant, who's wearing the Boba Fett's armour, and he basically says in order to earn back the armour, which, you know, the Marshal himself shouldn't necessarily have, he's got to help him with saving the town from a local monster. It's just such a... again, it's got a little bit of everything that's great for the whole series. And in terms of an opener for Season 2, it let you know as well that... Do you know how we used a few names in little roles in the first season? We've got some bigger names in bigger roles this time round, and you're going to really enjoy it. And I love it. It's great. I think it's the longest episode out of them all as well. It's almost like a mini film. It's like an hour and a half or an hour and 20 or something.
Is it? I mean, I know it's definitely longer than... I mean, I'm not. I don't even know if I've compared it to the first season, but I think Season 2 definitely runs at about 30 minutes, 30 minutes an episode. And... the only reason why I don't like it is because I want more of a good thing. However...
You're a glutton.
I'm an absolute glutton. But I do think they probably pack more into their 30-minute episodes than some shows do 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Like... and the Marshall episode, actually, it that reminds me of, not anime, but like a comic book. You could almost... If someone was to give you like a one-hit, like a one-shot, like, this is just... In the Star Wars universe, I don't need to give you anything else. You don't need. It could literally, that episode could probably be set at any time point. Yeah. Really. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, swap out the First Order for, you know, the Empire, and, you know, and all that, and it would work. And it brings a bit of fun into the Star Wars universe, which I think, you know, you could argue is lacking because it is separated from that main story that you know, life and death story arc that's going on. Well, not obviously there's life and death in it, but I mean on a sort of universe.
Yeah, on a grand
scale.
Narrative. Yeah.
Yeah. And Timothy Olyphant is, he's really good. I like how he's wearing the armor, but it's kind of hanging off him a little bit, and he looks like he's just walked out of a Comic-Con or something. Like, you know, he's just like stumbled out sort of thing. But he's really good in it, and I like how, you know, there's all these in the Outer Rim sort of worlds where everyone is a shade of grey, that, you know, you could just reinvent yourself. You know, and Mando, he encapsulates what a grey character is, and coming up against someone like Timothy Olyphant in The Marshal, to say, you know, I probably shouldn't have this, and you could kill me, but, you know, how about you do me a solid and I won't fight you and you get to rescue some stuff. And it's like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just do that. Let's go on it. It was a great opener. Didn't reinvent the wheel. You didn't come away from it going, oh my God, this has completely changed the sort of motives of the character. But I think it's always difficult. It's like a band's second album. You've had the whole of your musical career, life, everything you've experienced burnt down into one album. Yeah. And then you come in with your second album, it's like, right, now can you do all that again? It's like, whoa. There's a lot of emotion and story in that first one. It's difficult. Yeah. So I think out the gate, it's almost harder to start that momentum back up again. Like trying to get that boulder, knocking it off its first little perch to go down the mountain. But I think, you know, it's a strong episode.
Yeah, well, and I think that's... You said it yourself. It's the purpose of this episode of a second season opener isn't necessarily to get back to the big story. It's more about just, you know, almost showing you either what these characters have been up to, have these characters changed, where they're at, or just a good quality fun episode to get you back into the rhythm and enjoying it. This is where, for me, season 2 takes a little bit of a dip in The Passenger, which directed by Peyton Reed, still written by Jon Favreau, and for me, you can kind of see what I think Favreau wanted the episode to be like, and for me it just fell a little bit flat. I will say it did have the most horror-like element of the whole series with the ice spider creatures, but essentially Mando agrees to help a character go across the galaxy to another planet to meet up with their partner, their mate, in exchange for information of where there might be a Jedi, from what I remember, something like that. And he essentially, it goes a bit wrong. He crashes, and he has to fight ice monsters.
I like how it goes. It goes a bit wrong.
Yeah.
It's
for me. It wasn't great. Just the sequence with the ice spiders was cool, and then there was a little bit of New Republic where he introduced to a couple of X-wing pilots, a couple of New Republic officers, one of whom pops up again, and he's quite good. I don't know the actor's name. I do apologise, but he's fun. I like his character. It was just a little bit like, oh, okay, kind of like you said, the season 2 opener didn't really move the story along, and then this one also didn't move it along. I was kind of maybe hoping for it to be a bit more, let's get a bit more back on track and move it more before we go back to an almost monster of the week, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Yeah, I understand your points, but they're crap. No, I understand your points, and I do get the fact that maybe it didn't move on the story enough. But the actual person that he's transporting to her mate, again, similar to how much you get from Mando. Like, this is a puppet. This is a puppet that we care about, and then when is it the next episode where she actually meets up with him?
Yeah, I think
her
so.
Mate.
Yeah.
When I don't know if they animated a smile, but the excitement that I feel like I saw on her face when she sees her other half and runs to him, and I was like, oh, that was such a human, like, emotion that she was like demonstrating, and it's a mask. Like, again, just testament to the sort of behind, the special effects, visual effects.
That's the piece that didn't really work for me. Is that I didn't. This was the most, I think, of all the humanoid, whatever you want to call it, characters. This is the one where I was the most conscious of. Oh, I'm looking at a puppet, or if
really?
It was CGI. Yeah, it was very.
It's funny that I got the opposite of that.
Yeah. It was just too. I don't want to say cheap looking, but for the most part, it was just a big, clunky costume. There was bits of movement and articulation, but there was a lot of just the same expression. And again, you could argue, well, that's that race of alien. It doesn't change its face loads, whatever. It took it out. It took me out of it a little bit. Even in the following episode, which I thought the following episode overall was really good. But that moment where she meets her mate, I was just a bit like, this is almost played, and they kind of do try to play it for laughs a little bit. When Mando it then goes back in and kind of goes, oh, look after Grogu, and then, oh, I'm going, and it was a little bit that was something that was odd as well in the second episode of Grogu was eating her eggs, her spawn, whatever, and I think there's been a little bit of stuff online about, is it wrong, is it a bit too much, kind of thing. For me, again, it just more fell flat than was disgusting or outrageous. And I was just kind of like, I think I laughed maybe the first time more at Mando telling Grogu off, being like, stop it, off camera, and him just being like, I'm cute, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's good. But then
I'm saving Star Wars.
Yeah. But then they do it 4 or 5 times, and I was like, oh, okay, right. It was just a bit weird. They had this joke that they kept going back to, and I don't know. But again, it similarly, it had one of my favourite things of the whole season, which was those ice spiders, which were genuinely scary. I genuinely got really creeped out. There's something for me about, it's gonna sound really basic, but the fear of something being right behind you and you're running, it's almost scarier than trying to fight back against the monsters because you can't see it, but you know it's right there. There's something that really got to me about that, and I just think the design of the creatures was very clearly sort of arachnid in nature, but the fact they had the little mouth off the bottom and it was still very alien, and there's hundreds of little ones. I was like, that was really cool. I enjoyed that about it.
Yeah, it was a never-ending onslaught of
just waves of
creepiness. Yeah. It felt almost computer game like in the fact that this is stand your ground sort of. This is the horde section like that you've got to do. I liked it. I think maybe my feeling like around it was that we've gone such a peak of season 1 that this is now we're just chugging along. This is all good stuff, and then we're gonna notch it up a gear. In a couple of episodes time, like how often do you see your main characters going about their day-to-day business rather than just being on the quest all the time? And I think we're spending a lot of time with Mando and what he's up to, and you know what, this is the grinding bit of the super adventure that he's on. That
he's got to earn a living in between doing what he wants to do. I get that. I think it was just more. You've got the break between season 1 and 2. You've got the season 2 opener, which is exciting, but not necessarily linked to his quest, which is still ongoing. And then it was kind of like, right, we're back on board. Let's get back into the story, and then we can sort of teeter about later on. And it was just I don't know. But I mean, again, the worst of the Mandalorian is it's a bit like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The worst of it's like a solid 6, arguable 7 out of 10. So it's like, and again, I don't necessarily like ratings, but you know what I mean. The worst of it is pretty good.
Yeah, the worst Mandalorian episode is still better than a lot of other shows' best episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I think what it does manage to happen in the first, second, and third episode of season 2 is it gives you a very subtle way of seeing just how big and vast the universe and the occupied space that they have, because Moth Gideon is clearly, definitely in his super objective, in his mission to get the child back and to get because he's with Mando, but there's no they're not just hot on their tail. Like Mando's not kicking back, but he's getting on with stuff, because it's not like they're in the next town or the next country or the next planet. It's like they could literally be, they could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I kind of took away from that, or on a subtle level, felt that there's this enormous sort of world.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's not just for the purpose of telling a story. The next objective or the next thing that one of the characters needs isn't just there. Next town over, next planet over. There's a bit of physical space as well as time between. The Heiress was the next episode, where you basically see. This is where they start to use characters from other series, so you get to see more of Bo-Katan, I think she's called, from the Clone Wars. I'm not far into the Clone Wars, but I do already love it, so I'll get there eventually. And we basically see another side to Mandalorian culture, that actually it's not one thing. There's different sects within that believe different things. Because
that was one of the things, wasn't it? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
take your helmet off. It's just total opposite to what he's about.
Well, I suppose because they're such a scattered. I don't want to say race, because the Mandalorians are not really a race anymore.
They're a creed at that point.
People, aren't they? Yeah. They're so scattered, and no centralized government, or not every Mandalorian would speak to or be able to get in contact through Mandalorians to each other, is that for what is so clearly a massive, if not one of the biggest factors or things that he lives by, isn't even like, it's like, oh right, why wouldn't you take your helmet off? What's wrong with you? To another Mandalorian who is as much a Mandalorian as he is. It's just a different
arguably
sort
more. They've got more knowledge. They've got more knowledge of the Mandalore homeworld. They're more involved in the hierarchy and the actual leadership of the official Mandalorians, whatever you'd want to class it as. So yeah, it's definitely nice to see where the similarities lie in their creed of helping people who deserve to be helped and sort of fighting with honor and being good warriors. Yeah. But then, like you say,
I mean, the whole reason why Mando's taking the child in the first place, it's like he's taken that child, and by their own like laws, is he's now one of your
foundlings.
Yeah, I think she says you're one of your. She might say one of your brethren or creed or something like. She's the head of the sort of
So basically, because the child saves his life, he now must. It defended him. He must also defend the child, which is the thing that kind of settles it for him. Isn't it, when he's fighting the monster?
Yeah, and it's the blacksmith, I suppose you could call her.
Yeah.
Who makes his.
It's the head of his particular order, isn't it? At that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She basically says it to him. It's like, not a question. It's not a conversation. It's like, these are the facts, and Mando's like, right.
This is the way.
This is.
There was a lot less of that in season 2. I noticed, which again, maybe it's a specific thing for certain groups. Kind of follow that more. I can't remember if Bo-Katan says it to them at all, or.
Yeah, but it's like the whole like the Jedi, may the Force be with you. Like Han Solo doesn't say that to anyone. He don't, it means nothing to him. So unless Mando's around other Mandalorians who, that means something.
Yeah, they're not necessarily.
Anyone outside of your creed says it. It's like my first response would be, you taking a piss. That means nothing to you. Like.
Yeah.
So if anything, yes, there was less of it, but. It was probably better for it because it actually makes way more sense socially. Yeah. That's how it would be.
I just want to say as well, shout out to Titus Welliver, who pops up as an Imperial officer, who's really good in this. He's chewing scenery without really moving much. He's kind of just stuck in the cockpit or on the bridge for the most part, and he has a very cool way out of the, a Star Wars sci-fi take on the old cyanide pill. To prevent, being tortured for information or whatever, and another great action sequence. Bryce Dallas Howard, I think, directed that one. Yeah, so she handles it really well. I think she directed the episode we were talking about in the first series as well, which was quite the village one. Yeah, Sanctuary. But yeah, great. She's really good. She's actually been quite vocal about being a bit of a super fan. And
again, it just works, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Despite being an actor, and I think some actors and writers, etc., will sometimes shy away from praising franchises or kind of geeking out a little bit. But she's just like, no, I love it. I'll say I love it, and I mean, she got gigs directing on it, so fair play. It's worked out. Great bit of casting and great direction. Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, or pencil pushing Dylan from Predator. Directs the Siege, the next episode, which I love him in this, by the way. He's really good.
He's cool. Yeah. He's a cool guy. He comes across as a cool guy, so he's got that sort of going for him. And it's funny in it because when he first popped up, it didn't feel weird that he was in it. It kind of felt right. Like, oh, hasn't he been in? No. Oh, right, yeah. That completely works instantly.
Yeah.
Just feels right that he's there. And he's, a reoccurring character, isn't he? Like, when he's off doing whatever. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the Mandalorian is that they're not waiting for their interactions with Mando. They've got more than enough things going on in their life. If they never saw him again, they'd still be super busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, he's the magistrate, isn't he, for that planet by that point, I think. So the New Republic's come in, and he's the leader of that planet, or I don't know, whatever you class it as. And he's sort of running the town, and then he pulls in Mando, to help him with the mission, which then starts to hint at the wider implications of what's going on. And again, it nails that thing of, it's a little bit Monster of the Week-ish in that, there's an Imperial base, we need to go do a thing, and then, by the next episode you can get back to whatever you're doing, but then it actually ends up tying into the wider story, which is great.
There is a history, isn't there, in Star Wars canon and Star Wars lore, of suddenly someone who is a bit of a rogue, a bit of a rapscallion, a bit of a wrong'un, you could say, suddenly being, the head of Cloud City, for like...
Yeah.
Like that's just characters can be redeemed. Apparently, you can just do that. But I suppose when you can go from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader, the other way just seems way more plausible. Like,
I think it's the idea of it being a bit like the Wild West in that.
Yeah.
Like you said it yourself, that lots of people are a shade of grey. It's the story, the narrative, and the main characters, the Skywalkers, etc., who you follow. It's very black and white. It's very good and evil, and the Jedi try to themselves be the representation of good, while the Sith are the representation of evil. But then there's this other side to Star Wars where it acknowledges that's all well and good. The main characters, the main people, whatever the higher ups be in this black and white, but most people are pretty grey, and they have to dance the line between good and evil, or what they're comfortable with, and that sort of stuff.
In your main important planets where commerce and business all ring true and do whatever they need to do, but out here in the arse end of beyond, we've kind of got to be a little bit flexible with right and wrong.
Yeah.
To get in order to get things done day to day.
Yeah, exactly. Great sequence when they're in the, I can't remember what it's called, but they're in like the tank armored vehicle driving away with TIE fighters coming after them.
Yeah.
Which it's another case where, I mean, they're not necessarily the most effective in that one, but they it shows you how scary it would be that in the main canon. Well, the X-Wings turn up and batter them, and yay, we're fine. The cannon fodder. But in this, it's like, no, you're trying to get away from a couple of military jets, essentially, that are just coming at you and tearing up the ground around you. And it would be pretty scary. So,
Mandalorian definitely brings in that sort of boots on the ground sort of terror. I mean, maybe it's the angles that they're filming at, because it has got a very different sort of more modern filming style to it, but almost that sort of trenches sort of feel to it, that you can't help but empathise with the characters way more, because you feel like you're so up close next to them when stuff's going on, and everything feels bigger, scarier, faster. And I think that does sort of connect you with it like a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of scary, great opening to one of my favourites, but also one of the episodes which had some of the most glaring errors, Chapter 13, The Jedi. So Dave Filoni wrote and directed, made sense. He's a big proponent, a big creative force behind the animated stuff. And here we finally see Ahsoka in an opening where, she's very much, she's mature, she's a full independent adult Jedi,
years later
she's just dispatching these soldiers in the forest. It's really cool sequence.
I mean, I don't, Ahsoka's not a character that I am extremely up to date with like compared to other characters, but I know enough about her that when she was on it was like, yeah, cool, brilliant, this works, this doesn't feel forced. Like, this is this works.
Michael Biehn, however you pronounce it as well, favourite of ours. Just
I
pops up.
I didn't even recognise him at first.
Yeah.
When he's up on the
gate.
I mean, that base is definitely based on like a Japanese sort of entrance in it to a temple, or
like an old feudal town, or like a walled.
But when he's up on top, I didn't get it straight away. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't sit there and go like, oh, he's a bit strange, or I nothingned it almost in a way. I think it was like the next scene afterwards, or maybe when he's talking, like, to the what do you call her?
The magistrate, if that.
The magistrate. Yeah, when he's talking, when it's a more casual sort of a side conversation, I was like, hey,
Hicks,
what are you doing here?
You meant to be a goodie.
Yeah. Oh, you've changed. Now you're playing a different character in a different show. You've changed. Oh no, he has changed. That's the point. Right. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, but I was going to say there's some really, really impressive directing in this episode as well. Like, there's some great cinematography of the shots when Mando is with Ahsoka in the forest, and there's some shots where she's holding up Grogu, or she's sat talking to him, and you've got this backdrop of all these destroyed and burnt trees, and there's like a moon and a sky behind her, and a lot of it's silhouetted. There's loads of shots like that where you're like, wow. And you said it yourself, saying like the design of the town is almost like like Japanese or Asian inspired sort of direction. The whole episode has that feel. It's especially at the end, the sort of the finale showdown between Ahsoka and the Magistrate in this almost Zen garden, like bonsai style garden with miniature trees, and it's this great juxtaposition of this perfect, beautiful little garden walled off, and outside it's just chaos. It's just a scarred.
It's funny, isn't it, that we happen to be also playing Ghost of Tsushima at the same time with this going on, like, and you just think, God, it's all just, there's obviously something goes on in the zeitgeist, and we've spoken about this before, how suddenly you can have a year where films, TV, music, comics all seem to have that same sort of start off point, and everything flows out from that. And going back to the episode, this is where we get his name. We get Grogu's name for the first time in the episode. How did you feel when you heard that?
I was unsure.
Yeah. And
they don't say it loads. Mando says it a few times to kind of get him to acknowledge it. There is a really cute sequence where he's like, Grogu, and then he's just like, Grogu, and he's just, again, love Grogu. He's one of my favourite things.
Did you voice the character? I mean, obviously, physically he's based on you, but I wondered if you voiced him as well.
But yeah, the name at first I was a bit like, this is one of the things, my love-hate, my complicated relationship with Star Wars. Some of the names are terrible. They really are. A lot of the names are pretty bad, actually. But at the same time, that's part of the world, that everyone has rubbish names, so you almost kind of lean into it to a certain extent and go, I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment, and one of the characters is called Jet Nebula, and I was like, I'm out. I mean, I'm not, because I'm enjoying the audiobook, but I think they actually allude to that name not necessarily being real. One of the characters acknowledges that don't even sound right, and I'm like, that's most Star Wars names actually, but
The thing is, like, being an avid Star Wars fan for years, I've lived with these names longer than I've lived with my other half. But anyway, I think what is difficult is that they have everyday real world names like Luke. Yeah. Then they have, like, I know it's not his actual name. Skywalker. Yeah, Skywalker. You know what? I was nearly called Luke. My mum was at her best mate's house, and when she was pregnant with me, and she was talking about names, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about calling him Luke." To which my mum's friend, her son in the next room, went, "What, like Luke Skywalker?" And that put my mum off it. I'm like, what do you mean put you off it? That should put you on it.
She knew you more of a Sith, though. You're lucky she didn't go with Anakin.
But yeah, so getting back to my point, so you got Luke, you've got, I know it's not his real name, but Kylo Ren, which has a certain flow and hits certain sounds that it feels a bit more real. When you say it, and then you've got Grogu, and it's like, that's
just noises by that point.
That's just a weird one, and I think it's because if they put their flag firmly in one camp, you could go with it. Yeah. But when you've got, like, the main character, who, he is the main character in the original 3, called Luke, and then you've got Ben Kenobi, and then you've got Grogu. That's always going to be, but
he's also an alien from a different.
Of it. So's Luke. It's not Earth in the future. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, us humans, we get around, mate. Like, we are all over the shop. However, I would also strongly make the argument that no matter what name they came out for him, it would have felt weird.
Yeah, exactly. Because that point, everyone's calling him Baby Yoda. I don't know if that was ever like an official Star Wars thing, or that was just the internet went, oh, Baby Yoda.
No, yeah, I don't think it's just the child, isn't it?
But then I was going to say the official name within the series before that is the child. That's what he's referred to as. And yeah, so I was a little bit taken out of it. One other thing I want to touch on, which is there's quite a few episodes where it's apparent, but me and you spoke about it in this episode in particular. In the finale, sometimes
You talk about the cuts?
Yeah, so sometimes the stunt work is great.
Yeah.
But either the actors that they use or the edits around the use of the stunt actors isn't great. There's a couple of shots from Rosario Dawson playing Ahsoka where it's a little bit iffy, but I think those ones have a little more to do with
which is weird because as an actress she has proven her time. Her skill time and time again. So I don't know why
she can do the physical acting. I think it was more the editing of they've done a quick bit of CGI onto a roof and then they've cut to a quick weird angle and it doesn't quite sit right. Yeah. But the final fight, although it was really good and I enjoyed it, especially the magistrate, some of the shots of her stunt double back into the actual, again I can't remember her name so I apologise, but the actor playing the magistrate then in the main wasn't seamless at all, and it did take me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, and I won't go into it in all the other ones, but there's actually quite a lot of that in the series overall where the stunt work and the edits to and from isn't seamless, but a lot of the series is so physically based and so well directed that you do overlook it for the most part. There's only a couple of times when it really takes you out of it.
I mean, in the accompanying documentary series, they don't try to hide the fact that there's clearly a few different people who play Mando at different points. So any of the acting, is the actor.
Yeah.
But when they go into it's not, the heavy stunt episodes. I mean, probably from a legal point of view and, contracts and all that sort of stuff, he wouldn't be allowed to do, or able to do, I'd say allowed. They wouldn't want him to do certain things.
Yeah.
And the stunt doubles would come in.
Yeah.
So I think as the Mando character, with all the people who, offer things up for that, I think generally really, really good. I've never been aware of a scene or a cut where I've gone, all right, no, that's when that guy comes in or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't paying attention when it did happen. If there is, if people out there, know a particular bit, but I wasn't, very heavily, consciously aware of it. But I think, was it a time constraint thing? We have no idea what was going on, at filming or anything like that. But it's the only time where I felt like it could have been a little bit slicker.
Yeah, there's been a lot I've noticed. Mando's the one character where I've not necessarily noticed it. That's also helped by the fact that it's easier to cover a character who's got a fairly average build, fully covered, sort of head to toe, and apart from being a slim to athletic physique, there's nothing standing out about the look where if suddenly someone a few inches taller or a few inches bigger or whatever, or slimmer was to put that on and do a stunt, you're not really going to notice it as much. When it's a character who's she seems middle to maybe slightly older aged actor playing the magistrate, to then cut to what looks like a much slimmer, much more athletic character flying round with the Beskar spear, to then cut back to the same actor then facing off against a much younger and more athletic Rosario Dawson. It was very noticeable in that one. There was a few more as well, but that was one episode where I think I maybe even noticed it more because I was enjoying this episode more than a lot of the others,
right.
And then that was suddenly like, oh no, I thought it was going to be a 10 out of 10, and
But you know what? I think again, it might have something to do with the fact of it. It's not necessarily the best example in The Mandalorian, but for another show, that would be the best example.
Yeah,
so
it's
again,
still a great scene. Yeah.
Again, it comes back to that whole thing of like, the only reason we criticize anything or talk about anything is because we like it so much.
Yeah.
That even with we pointing out anything that could be seen as negative, it's like no, we still think that's just a massive cut above most of everything else.
Yeah.
Like
that's still one of my favourite episodes of it all, despite being one of the most noticeable, take me out of the moment a bit stunt work, which you get in AAA blockbusters. You get the odd scene where it's like, oh, they couldn't really edit around that well enough. It's not. It doesn't take away from it, and ultimately that episode moves the story. It feels like quite a big way where we found a Jedi. Spear. Well, yeah, he gets his spear. We've found a Jedi who, although she says she can't train him, says there is a way that maybe another Jedi will find him, and other than that, I'm happy to help you out, if and when needed, or
and I think this is one of those times where Mando's obvious complete and utter hatred of history books really pays off, because if he saw a Jedi, arguably you could see that a Mandalorian stood next to a Jedi. This is like, well, these are two ancient foes here.
Yeah.
Not that the Mandalorian are baddies at all, or in the sort of like a kids' film, goodies and baddies. The Mandalorians also really dislike the Empire. They basically don't want to be told what to do, and who does?
Yeah.
So they have got beef in the past, and maybe actually, like I said, Mando's absolute hatred. He loves and hates a lot of things, but he really cannot stand historical texts. So actually, probably did him quite a good thing there.
Yeah. We'll move on. Another great star turn from a director, Robert Rodriguez, comes in with Chapter 14, The Tragedy, which another great episode. Big in terms of consequence and what it means for the story, but again very simple in that the setup is Mando goes to this planet he's been told about, and he basically gets told, go and touch this rock with the child, and he'll be able to reach out to the Jedi. He doesn't really know what that means or how that'll go, and it doesn't spoon feed it to us. Even when it's happening, there's an energy field around Grogu, and you kind of just it lets you presume, oh well, he's tapped into the Force and it's sending out a beacon.
And I really love, you see through Mando's eyes or through his helmet, and he's scanning, trying to find some sort of like device or communication or ray or sensor or something like that. And it's because he's so devoid of caring about something like the Force that doesn't seem to affect his day-to-day life or people around him.
Yeah,
that he wouldn't even think that it would be something like that. That the Mandalorians are heavily based in sort of tech training, strengthening your body, your mind, on a very real basis, not some sort of like spiritual.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Mandalorians aren't spiritual, but not on a sort of level that you would expect a Jedi to be.
Oh yeah,
or someone who's Force sensitive.
To them it's magic.
Yeah,
what Grogu can do is magic, whereas his first instinct is what. Is there a beacon? Literally, do I press the button?
Yeah, where do I plug it in?
Yeah.
Is there a key? Like, how do I activate this communications array? Essentially, is what he's thinking.
Yeah.
But they don't labour on that point. You see it through his eyes. If you don't pick up on that as an audience member, you're gonna be left behind. But you're not gonna be like have to tap out of the show. But it's like, oh, you don't get it. That's fine. It don't matter. But it is there. It's very obvious if you know to look for it. That's what he's doing.
And we also get Boba Fett and a return of, I can't remember the character's name, but a character from season 1 who we thought was dead.
Left in the desert.
Left in the desert, who it turns out Boba helped save her life, and in return she owes him a life debt essentially. And Boba basically first confronts...
feeds into that whole Mandalorian nature and stuff, and that whole thing online in it before Mandalorian even season 1 started is like, is Boba not a Mandalorian now? Has the canon changed, or with all that whole thing, is he a true Mandalorian with Beskar armor and all that sort of stuff? But still, he's obviously got those he's been taught and it's ingrained in who he is, and he comes back in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. I think he confirms at some point in the series that I think his father Django was a Mandalorian, or was at least trained by or trained with Mandalorians, and in this it confirms, Boba isn't one, but one, he's earned that armour. It is his armour. And two, like you say, he's definitely has hints, he has elements of Mandalorian culture. Even in the basic sense that he's a bit of a somewhat roguish or sometimes sort of standalone warrior, and he's got elements of that culture which really help him in some of the ways he fights. And he basically teams up with Mando to fight Imperials. I think he literally says something like, I want the armor. There's a great little bit of dialogue where Mando's like, you can't have my armor, it's my armor, and he's like, no, I don't want your armor, I want my armor. And again, there's the back and forth about are you even a Mandalorian, etc. But it's great. Is it Tamara Robinson? Tamara Morrison, isn't it? Can't remember the actor's name, but again, obviously comes back. Django himself now playing Boba, and it's just it's a good episode.
It's a beautiful sort of really happy coincidence, the fact that we now need an aged up Boba. Guess what? The actor who plays Django, who Boba's a clone of, is now also at the perfect age to play the aged up version of his own clone son, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and it's just one of those happy coincidences that you just go, that completely, it doesn't just make sense from a sort of aesthetic of how he would look. It's like that's how I want it to be, and it works.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Like
it's it also redeems the fact that, original trilogy, everyone talks about how cool Boba Fett is. He's not really. He looks good. He looks good. He doesn't do out. He gets nudged by a blind Han Solo into the Sarlacc pit, from what I remember. He don't do anything, but he looks great, and obviously there's all the extended universe stuff. There's all the canon, which most of it isn't canon anymore or whatever. But we basically get to see, he is cool. He is like a good fighter, like his father was, and we see it here where he's literally smashing through stormtroopers' helmets and through their armor with his spear. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny to say like what is canon and what isn't canon, because Jango Fett, there's a long history within the Boba Fett sort of familial ties that his dad is possibly actually the rightful ruler of the Mandalorians and all. There's loads of stuff. There's loads of stuff in sort of like extended universe and all that, and like I think he had an issue with what's her name? I've got Cara Dune stuck in my head.
Bo-Katan?
I think he killed her mentor or something like that. So there's like, which just builds to the next episode. Yeah. I don't know if that's actually plays into sort of their mindset as characters, whether or not it is canon or isn't canon. And maybe, unless it needs to be specifically said in an episode, just leave it. If you know about it, it works. If you don't know about it, it also works. It's fine.
That will be confirmed or disproved in the Clone Wars series, because Bo-Katan is the ruler at one point and that sort of stuff. But there's loads of stuff around Django, and to be fair, he seems to get killed off also a little bit easily in a way in the in Attack of the Clones. Mace Windu basically beheads him. But again, he's caught off guard by who I think is meant to be one of the best Jedi, in history, and
well, he's got a purple lightsaber, so
pretty cool.
Says it all, right?
Pretty cool.
Purple lightsaber.
But I enjoyed the episode. Well directed, and again, we've said it. Quite a few of the episodes are a good sort of representation for the whole series, in that quite a simple setup, good action sequences for the most part, but with quite big consequences, at least in the narrative context.
Oh, you're talking about your ship?
Well, is that as well? Yeah.
How much money has he wasted on that ship?
Yeah. That was something I didn't know how to feel about.
People still call it a pile of crap. Like,
yeah, I didn't know how to feel about that, because you start to. I didn't feel one way or the other about his ship before that episode. It's a bit of a clunky design, and they acknowledge that that's intentional. It's like an old ship in the context of that timeline. It's not particularly great. But then when it's destroyed after he's just got it fixed and then fixed again within like 2 or 3 episodes consecutively, and then like, oh, it's gone. I can't remember as well, because out of the wreckage he picks up the little
the top of the gear shifter or whatever it is.
He picks up the sphere off the top of his his controls. Does he actually give that to Grogu again at any point, or was it just for that episode? It was a nice moment. I don't remember if he ever gives. I mean, he doesn't necessarily get a chance to give it him, does it? Really, to be fair.
Season 1, he looks at where the ball was, and that's not the reason, but that reminds him of Grogu or the child at that point, and that's when he goes back to get him in season 1. He uses it as a way to get Grogu to use the Force.
Yeah.
In the thing, and then just picks it up as of like, my ship's gone, but the connection with who loves this is way stronger. Yeah.
I get the idea of why.
Oh no, I was just playing it out in my own head, thinking like, does he? I can't.
I was trying to think that at the end when Grogu, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when Grogu eventually, joins up with the Jedi, does he give it him as like a souvenir?
I think he does.
A harrowing end to the episode as well. We see the Dark Troopers, the droid versions of sort of like elite stormtrooper commandos, basically, which are really, really quite scary, especially as you get into the finale. They're really cool.
I mean, at this point, do any of these guys think that they're not the baddies in this? Like, they're literally called like Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
Like, they look like demonic robots. Like, they're not thinking like, oh, we're doing this for the good of the galaxy, right? It's like, no, you're psychos.
This
like,
is for order and for evil.
Yeah, like, oh, I can't wait to bring law and order to this place. Bring out the Dark Troopers. Like, he's doing that. It's not since the Clone Wars that we've seen sort of like a force en masse like that.
Great episode from Rit Famuyiwa. I could be pronouncing that wrong, apologies if I am. But directed and written, the episode The Believer, where we get a return of Mayfield, of Bill Burr's character.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been hinted at from, like, people have been asking him, because obviously he's a stand-up comic, he's an actor.
Yeah.
He does a lot of, like, podcasts and stuff like that. So one of the easy questions is, like, are you going to come back? It was great to see, yet again, another grey character come into it. And if anything, he's a lot more of a morally upstanding character than you actually give him credit for the first time you see him.
They humanise him a lot in this, and actually
massively done in a really good way.
They do in this episode what I love. There's a particular scene towards the end where, essentially in the episode, Mayfield is Mando and Gina Carrera's character are gonna break out Mayfield from prison and get him to help get a particular bit of tech so he can coordinate Moth Gideon's ship.
Yeah, a heist episode.
Exactly, another heist one, another Bill Burr joint. It's great fun, and they do two things in this. They both humanise. Well, they both show how evil and corrupt and powerful and how much of a dictatorship, to a lot of degree, the Empire is. They also humanise the Empire in terms of, let's be honest, if you lived in this galaxy and you had any aspirations of being in any sort of military or law type role, or even if you lived in the Outer Rim and saw how chaotic and lawlessness it was, you'd probably want to be in the Empire. You'd probably be like, well, yeah, sign me up. They're bringing order and, you don't see the evil side because of propaganda, how these things work, but they're bringing peace to a lot of planets, which they actually are. Once they conquer a planet, after that, it seems to be pretty much, right, crack on and as long as you're not a Jedi, you're fine.
Isn't there a line where he says, I can't imagine you'd be happy to see stormtroopers?
Yeah.
When they finally roll in. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, actually you were there. And I think it's almost, whether or not it was intentional or not, but as an audience member, you kind of feel like, oh, they duped me. They got me. It's like, I was actually happy to see the stormtroopers for a second, and it's like, but should you be? And it's like, oh, shit. Like,
well, yeah, exactly.
It was one of my favourite episodes, actually. I thought it was really good. That take all the action out of it. A great action set piece on the sort of tank sort of.
Yeah, on the fuel tanker.
Not necessarily anything that we haven't seen before, but it was really, really well done. But for me, the best bit was when the three of them were sat around that table in the sort of the mess hall. Just
that for me, that was one of the best scenes in the whole of the Mandalorian 2 series. In terms
easily.
of the acting, I didn't love the oil tanker action set piece. I felt like it went on a little bit too long in that they kind of did it and then they fought off the pirates and then now there's 2 pirates, now there's 3 pirates, and it was the same again and again and again.
It did get to a bit cannon fodder-esque.
Yeah. What I did like, though, it was interesting. It was funny to see Mando fighting in the Stormtrooper level of armour, where if he's getting hit by blasters or hit by things, he's feeling it a hell of a lot more than when he's got his Beskar armour on. And he's having to fight very differently. He can't be as physical hand to hand. He's got to be a bit more clever than he is normally.
Plus, essentially, he's not fighting in his own skin. Like, he is exactly. In his order that he wears his helmet all the time. So it'd be like, not only are you fighting a lot of enemies, but you're not even you. Like,
exactly.
That's a lot.
A big piece of his identity, not just physical fighting, but like you say, like spiritually or whatever, as a character. That scene in the bar where Mayfield, is that what it's called? He confronts his former officer, and it reminded me of.
He's seething, isn't he? Like, you can feel the heat and vengeance from him.
We spoke about Tarantino before, and it had little lashings of in Inglourious Bastards, the opening scene of Hans Landa confronting the farmer. Or actually, I mean, the scene where the officers are confronted by the other ones as well. It was just the idea of the audience knows something that the characters don't, or some of the characters don't, some of them do. And actually, of all the characters in there, they don't all know the whole picture of everybody else, and they don't all know what the person's going to do next. And it was just great acting. It was very tense. And then the fact that it then just turns into Mando Mayfield just starts shooting everyone. You're like, we've just started humanising the Empire, and now we're showing one of the most vile, evil officers, and now we're just going to shoot everyone else. It was kind of like, talk about grey area. I was like, I don't know how to feel about any of this. Like, these are all
is anyone good or bad? What is going on here? I think I was seeing it from like sort of Mando's point of view, and it kind of felt like, oh, here it goes. Like, we got to just go with this. Yeah, and obviously, Mando without his helmet on, saying, I can't remember what his actual line is or something. It's like, is it like we stick to the plan, or I'll do it, or everything that has to go along with that? What he is surrendering as a person, giving up, is everything that Mayfield's been talking about in the drive over. Yeah, very, very powerful stuff in there.
There is one thing I'd say about that, and one thing that it was a shame that this episode was so close to the finale, as in it was the penultimate one. Yeah. It lessened the impact at the end of the finale of this season when he takes his helmet off and openly in front of pretty much everyone in order to truly say goodbye to Grogu, spoiler alert. It was lessened because one episode before he's done the same.
We'd just seen it,
I agree. It was kind of a bit like, oh, okay. It felt a little bit like, oh, well, he's just doing this all the time now. And you know what I mean? It was just a bit... I know that's not the point. I know I'm being a little bit facetious there and a little bit harsh, but that was the one thing of, could they not have found a way to either place this episode earlier in the season, or just change that element of it where he doesn't have to take his helmet off?
Yeah.
More to... not that he can't take his helmet off whenever the story dictates. It was more...
But gives more gravity.
Exactly. The emotional impact in the finale. Should we jump into the finale?
Yeah, I mean, the joke could be now is like, how do you know when Mando's thoroughly emotionally invested? Oh, don't worry, he'll take his helmet off and show you. I completely agree with you. The two episodes, independent of each other, are great, but that close together, it ends up ever so slightly weakening, slight watering down of it. But yeah, let's go with the final episode.
Yeah, we'll jump in. Jon Favreau back on writing duties. Again, it shows that at least this overall story arc of the 2 seasons, one of the reasons it works, the main man's back in the helm. He clearly had the end goal in mind when he was writing it and creating it. Funnily enough, my least favourite director of the Mandalorian series so far, Peyton Reed, comes in and does a great job, directs what is a very gripping finale to this to this season and to this story arc of the 2 seasons in The Rescue.
I could sit here and analyse the cinematography and the pacing and even the fact that the music even shifts to be more fully orchestral rather than the wind instrument that we've had throughout the whole show. It doesn't, after the final curtain draws, it doesn't go to the normal Mandalorian music. It's the same tune, I think, but it's all done more orchestral to tie back into the original series. More
classical, yeah.
But that all aside, it was edge of my seat stuff. It was like being a kid again.
Yeah.
Arguably for me, the best Star Wars experience I've had since watching the originals.
Yeah.
I can't get past my own emotion of watching that episode, so I can't really see anything else right at this moment, but go on.
So, I'm going to get the bad out of the way, because it was actually quite a big
Whoa.
What would otherwise ruin the experience for me? I mean, it made me laugh out loud and took me right out of the finale, but I still enjoyed the overall experience overall, and that was Snapchat filter Luke Skywalker. I mean...
Do you think it was that bad?
Come on, dude. That was the...
Right.
So I have a theory that they ran out of time. I mean, there's deep fakes on YouTube which would look better than that.
I've seen them.
What I hope they'll do, something they did with, I think, season 1 of Mandalorian. There's a couple of shots in some episodes where there was extras or something was wrong in the background.
Yeah, I think it's in a doorway.
There's
a Lego character of it.
There we go. They re-released a corrected version. They've got to do it with this so that people watching in future don't get what we got on first viewing, because... At
no point did I expect it to be a real-life de-aged Mark Hamill. So the fact that it didn't look unreal. It didn't like a weird...
It did.
It didn't...
It looked really bad.
It didn't look bad.
It fell down the uncanny valley and smashed the sides 100 times.
No, come on, mate. It didn't look like it was created in a lab or anything. Like it looked like... I mean, part of me was expecting... what's he called?
Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, I
really
was expecting it.
Just get him in it. Just get him in it. Why have a bad CGI face when you've got an actor who looks like him?
Yeah, I mean, some of those pictures of him they've superimposed his hair onto him, but facially, structure-wise, what is weird about it is that Jon Favreau has said that scene, or this Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, is by far not going to be the only time we see Luke Skywalker on Disney Plus. So for me, it's like, if anything, that means more of a reason to get him in to do it. But dude, honest to God, when that I didn't clock it when the X-Wing went past, as in, oh, it's Luke. The X-Wing went past.
Was that the first thing you thought?
When the X-Wing went... No, only because we'd had the X-Wings in it earlier, and then Cara Dune said, oh, one single X-Wing, what's that going to do? Or, whatever she said. And then, clearly, a Jedi gets off or onto the ship. And I think what it is, and we've talked about this in other episodes, where I've been burnt before. So it was like, at this point, 13, 14-year-old, or maybe obviously younger, 8-year-old Charlie would want, his boy, Luke Skywalker, to turn up and just, wreck the shit out of everyone here. But, you've been burnt, it's not going to be. It's not going to be. And there was even part of me that was thinking it could be, is it something to do with Mace Windu or something going on here?
That was rumours online, wasn't it? That there was going to be a Mace Windu return. Yeah.
No, I thought of it completely by myself. Don't fucking start that. And then obviously the green saber comes out, and you're like, oh, so we got an X-wing, we got a green saber, and then the thing that I knew was the one gloved hand.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it's obviously Luke, and I think again this comes down to Jon Favreau just being a massive Star Wars fan. Is a massive thing that has always really stuck negatively with Star Wars fans, is that we never got to see this legendary Jedi that Luke is clearly set up to be in the originals.
Yeah.
We never get to see that guy. We get to see him at the beginning of his training, to completing his training, knowing that he's going to be the best or most competent Jedi ever, and then we cut to him being an old man. And that missing bit for me is just heart-wrenching that Mark Hamill never got to be Luke Skywalker at his best on screen.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we've been robbed of that.
We didn't even get his full training. We got the start of his training, and then by Return of the Jedi, he is a he is at his peak. He is at his prime, and obviously limitations of the film and the special effects and stuff. You don't see the power, but by that point, he's kicking ass, and so then it's that. Then, like you say, it's that question of, well, if you take that Luke and put him in other situations and other battles, you know, and this is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, I think it's set, something like that. This is that emotional, powerful Jedi that he's meant to be.
He's walking through and he's taking out those troopers. Mando was lucky to get out of that.
Yeah.
And Luke's barely breaking a sweat. Like, there's no force, speed or anything jumping from...
Yeah, just casually.
He's got a lot of the skill. It's just, and I think it actually works on many levels. One, it shows how powerful Luke is, but I think the next scene of him being so tempered and calm when he's meeting Grogu.
Yeah.
If we'd just seen that same guy just, you know, like screaming and ripping it up, and I don't think it would have felt as grandiose as it actually was in the end.
I think it actually, as well, it speaks less to his power, because there's only one I can remember that he uses the Force to crush it right at the end, the final that one. It's just his pure skill. He's a weapons master. He's like just deflecting things, and like you say, he's not using the Force necessarily. He's just a master with a blade. He's a master swordsman, which Mando is like a master
weapons
gunslinger, and he's good at exactly, and just weapons in general. So there is that nice little keeping it within that idea. It's just a shame that they use Jeff Dunham's Snapchat filters to do his face. It really. So my partner's not a big Star Wars fan, but she's been loving Mandalorian. But we both looked at each other. So the first reveal when you see Luke, I went, "Oh, okay," thinking, well, he could have just kept his hood down and let us guess. But then when he started talking, and it lingered on him.
Maybe you just got a better telly than I have here.
That could be it, because I'm on a big 4K HDR screen watching that, and it's like, oh. I also think though as well, I think there's a side, I think with you more than me even, of like a forgiving side of like, I just want to see Luke so much that, do you know what, I'm in. And that's not a bad thing, that's not a criticism, or I kind of wish I was into him and into Star Wars where I could overlook it, but it was too much.
I suppose the damned if they do and the damned if they don't, because if they didn't get Mark Hamill in to do it, people would have. There's definitely a demographic out there who would have been like, "No, I'm out. You've done it. You know, he's still around. Get him in. There's some way. It's 2020. Yeah. We're all on furlough. You've got time to go and sort it out. Like, you know."
But then finish the special effects, because that literally looked like one of the video games from like the GameCube or the PlayStation 2 or something. It was,
no, fuck off.
It looked more like a pre-visual to me. It didn't look finished. There was no movement or depth. It looked quite flat, and it was almost like only the mouth and then a little bit of the eye moved, and it was very
maybe I just saw it as like he's very calm demeanor. But I mean, I found it extremely difficult to watch that episode with any sort of analytical side. I was just it's weird because it took me out of the experience in a way. It broke the fourth wall for me, because I was very aware that I was leaning forward on the sofa and I had a chill. I watched it back earlier today actually, and I got chills. And again, it took me out of it, but you know what? I was fine with it, because this is a raw, emotional reaction to a TV show on the second viewing as well. And I was I'm in, man. This. I'm totally bought into this. I still love Luke and everything that he represents. X amount of years afterwards, and I was like, and I turned. I think I said this at the beginning of this episode. Actually, I turned to my missus and I was like, very animated, like this right now. This is Star Wars. This is everything that all those original films had in just bucketfuls. It's just there's no fighting. I'm talking about the bit when it's when he's actually he opens the doors. I was like that. There's no fighting. Yeah. They're not in space at this moment. In a story, they don't have to be in space. Doesn't have to be an alien. It doesn't have to be a Mandalorian. Cara Dune doesn't have to be like a drop. What is she? A drop?
Yeah, she's a drop trooper, isn't she? Yeah.
Drop trooper, yeah. And then the other Mandalorians in the back, the Darksaber and all this is irrelevant. They're just human beings in their story, and this is a really emotionally charged bit. So you take all that away from it. You set it in Japan. You set it in the Wild West. You could set it anywhere. It just happens to be in space.
It's a universal hero's journey or story of redemption, revenge, love, whatever.
And redemption's a great word for it, because it's a redemption for Luke's character from the audience point of view. It's redemption from Star Wars as an entity, how it's come back. People were worried about Disney having it. Some of the critiques of the films have been lashed out against Disney because they've got it and they've done this with it. But they've also completely done the Mandalorian as well. So redemption. A lot of redemption has come into that. Definitely, very, very emotionally charged episode from them and from me.
And I think, to be fair, when you talk about it, I don't necessarily think that is taking you out of it. I think that's, like you say, an emotional reaction is what you want, even if you are conscious of the adrenaline, the hairs in the back of the neck. There's some films and some things I've watched where I have that reaction, but I love it. That's the point. Yeah. It's storytelling. The difference for me was just if a special effect is noticeably bad to the point where you start thinking, oh, it mustn't be finished. And then straight away think, oh, Jeff Dunham Snapchat filter comedy bits, but it sets off a reaction thinking about a million things not in a positive way. I mean, again, I feel like I'm being harsh now, so I won't keep going on about it, because at the end of the day, I still love the episode. I still got the adrenaline. I still got that same emotional reaction when it was clearly Luke chopping his way through Dark Troopers, who by that point they've had a Skrillex remix dubstep score. They've had Terminator style visuals where they're beating up Mando and smashing his face, and I'm like, these are no way.
Through the hands through the door.
Yeah, and then he starts punching him. He punches Mando into the wall and all that, and I'm like, this is scary. And then Luke just, I'm the Jedi.
I thought it was. I mean, I'm going slightly back now, but the fight between Mando and the Trooper, and then Mando, when he's getting hit with the Darksaber, was a really great demonstration of the armor. Yeah. Of how good that armor is, and even like the heating up of the spear when it was like, is it going to melt or like because at the end of the day it's not indestructible, it's just a really shit hot metal. I thought it was a really good way of demonstrating how good it is.
Let's quickly touch on that as well, because Moth Gideon, to be fair, you could almost argue he's a little bit of a damp squib. There's a lot of build up and a lot of he seems cool and evil, and he don't really do anything until the finale. Yeah, but then that fight is almost, I don't think it does him favours in terms of he's clearly not the all-powerful big evil, despite his intentions.
Well, he has to trick Mando in the first place by he has to hit him. Yeah. I think he goes around the back, doesn't he?
Exactly.
Back of the head,
and although he's not the most skilled with the weapon, he's not like this beautiful. It's not like Ahsoka versus the Magistrate where it's all very technique-based fighting. What I did like about it reminded me of Return of the Jedi, of Luke wailing on Vader, raw emotion and strength, and ignore the Force, ignore powers. This is him fighting someone in a physical duel and emotionally charged, and that was what that reminded me of. There were a couple bits where it was more skill based, but a lot of it was he was basically probably knowing this will only affect the Mandalorian if I hit him on one of his weak points, or if I physically force the way into the armor or dent it or something, because obviously it can't cut through purest Beskar, which by that point obviously his armor is. But it was still a really good fight, and little things like that of the heat of things. Yeah. Let's jump into the post credit scene, because it wouldn't be a Disney property without one.
I didn't think we were going to see the Jedi. Even though I knew it was Luke at that point. There's so many signs. I didn't think we were going to get the reveal. I thought it would literally be curtains down as he entered the room. Yeah. So to get Luke, not only the reveal but the conversation. Yeah. Then a post credit, not even a sting. It was like a full on. Setup, a good couple, like one scene, but like a proper meaty scene.
I'm talking to meaty, Bib Fortuna. He's piled the pounds on. He looks worse than me. Truly taken after Jabba.
Maybe we'll see that with Boba the Hutt. You'll get like just like.
But that's basically it. We see Boba Fett and his newly found partner companion take Jabba's, what was formerly Jabba's palace, was at that point Bib Fortuna's palace of food. Basically take it over and reveals that next year we're going to get a Book of Boba series. Was it called?
Yeah, I mean, what a great title.
Yeah, I'm in.
The book of Boba.
And I'd be happy with it
cool.
Almost like an anthology series or a Monster of the Week of different people come to Boba to either to pay tribute to him as this new Hutt leader, cartel leader, gang leader, or if it's just him in the palace just chilling, meeting bounty hunters, meeting smugglers, whatever. Yeah.
Deciding on curtains and stuff like that. I mean,
redecorating.
I mean, we're getting into what is definitely going to be our another mini pod based on the Star Wars Disney investors meeting or whatever it was. Yeah. What we've been referring to as like the bombs that have dropped. But I think this one does go definitely with the Mandalorian. Is that the Boba Fett one is supposed to be a limited series, so I don't think it's going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe it'll be an anthology or something a bit different compared to Mandalorian. Yeah,
because I mean, having two Mandalorian-esque series with title characters looking as they do would be a bit weird. Yeah. However, I also think that if it does really well and people are bought into it and it's a really good show, why wouldn't you carry it on if it could be carried on?
Or even just folding back into Mandalorian, because I mean, we'll do a quick bit of speculation. Have you got any ideas where you think season 3 will go? It's in pre-production. I mean, they don't need to confirm it. Obviously, they're going to do something.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of a feeling of, they could just draw the curtains on it, and that's a nice little wrap up to this story. But I think that as much as I love Baby Yoda, which I will always call him, and I do. My partner got really annoyed at my reaction to him. Like, it's my baby. She's like, we've got a dog here that's cute. I'm like, yeah, but that's got the Force. But as much as
Paul Winter,
as much as I love that story, I would be interested to see. Let's see Mando just doing almost less emotionally attached to a vulnerable thing, and let's see Mando get a little darker, or maybe go into the Bo-Katan in taking back Mandalore and taking back the whole world. I mean, there's that plot thread of that she has to defeat him to get the Darksaber, technically.
Which goes against some of the animated shows that she's taken the blade off someone before, or been given the blade before, so there's whole things on that, which might be a continuity thing, or they'll try and mould it in, or now that original bit's not canon, or whatever. I think season 3 is going to be, the journey between them two, and how. Yeah. I mean, he's actually in a place now where it's your classic sort of hero. Knows very little about, or cares very little about, restoring Mandalore, like the Mandalorian homeworld. Might get dragged into it a little bit, and before you know it, he's a fully paid up member fighting for it. So he's on the character's on the precipice, I think, of doing that. Or it could be a complete out and out war between those two for the. Because you could almost be like, well, I don't want the blade. It's like, well, even if you leave it there, I've got to fight you anyway. So
yeah, that's the thing. I saw a little bits of speculation of like, he's now technically the true ruler of Mandalore. I think the leader is called the true Mandalore or something like that. But I don't think for him to suddenly go, well, now I want to be king of the warriors, it'd be a bit like, no, he's not. He says it to her. He's like, look, I'll give it to you, and she's like, oh, yeah. Moth Gideon's like, well, she's got to defeat you to get it, and he's like, right, well, I yield. You've beat me. In fact, he's got zero. It's not like he's got a little bit of. It's quite a cool weapon. He's totally out. So yeah, I don't know what they'll what they will do with that, but I'd be interested to see whatever it is. I trust Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, anyone else who's been involved, even Peyton Reed at this point.
a year is a very, very long time. Yeah. And I think, that I have complete and utter trust in Jon Favreau. Has probably got about 1 million different stories that it could go down and explore. I really love the idea of having the Boba TV series, all the other. I mean, this is going into the bomb stuff now. That going forward, they're just always constantly weaving in and out almost like the small screen version that we got of the Marvel
the
stuff.
Netflix MCU
stuff. There might be in a couple of years actually one TV season or a mini season which culminates in all the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and all the rest. I think in conclusion, if we're going to start wrapping this pod up, is I'm the most excited in regards to the future of Star Wars than I've ever been. And it's not just excitement of what could happen, it's excitement based on what is actually already happening. We're in the midst of this. I have said before, like I said on the last episode, that so much stuff has come out, it's almost like the pessimist in me is like a bit worried because so much is coming out. But the stuff that we've seen, we're definitely on the right tracks now. I say we as if I'm part of it.
He's available, he'll take bookings for work.
I'd do it for free, mate. We've spoke about me and my acting before, like, I'd do it just, for the love of the craft.
But if you want to give a £1 million role...
I'll take that shit.
There's one thing they've got to keep going, and I've not actually touched on it too much today, but you mentioned it earlier, and that's Ludwig Göransson's score. They've got to keep that going because it's so different from everything else. Up to now, everything Star Wars score music-wise has been John Williams or John Williams adjacent. It's been another composer doing a bit of a John Williams thing, like Rogue One. I think one or two of the other new films or the spin-offs maybe wasn't John Williams. I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically, even the animated series, it's been, and again, not a criticism, but it's been Star Wars light or John Williams homage. In this, it was just totally original, contemporary in the sense that a lot of it was quite electronic based and quite software based, the way he'd done the music from what we could tell. But then you mentioned there was a lot of sort of like windpipe instruments. There was a lot of unusual sounds, like the
recorder and stuff like that instrument that so many kids in Britain have to be forced to play when they're in primary school. I think maybe because my other half is, she is a musician, that
pretty good as well. Listen to the theme tune.
Her stuff with her orchestra and the stuff that she gets up to, I think it switched me on to taking note of it in stuff like this, and I think I'm more triggered about it in a good way. Like when the music at the end cut in, instantly it felt very, very different. I was very aware of how different, and I think because I'm part of that world or see that world that she's in, that I'm very it just sparks a lot of interest in me. It's very obvious when they do that, and you can do so much with the music. It completely. I mean, have you ever watched anything like and then rewatched it without any musical score?
It's that's what I was going to say. That there's a couple of things
unwatchable.
There's a couple of things with the series that works really well with the music. One, as I said, it's quite contemporary, but a lot of the unusual sounds and unusual way he uses instruments, it almost becomes a character of the series. Of these are alien worlds. This is an alien story. And some of it pays homage to the Western and Eastern influences, but some of it is just, this is a funny noise, stick it in a Star Wars score.
Well, it's like the recorder stuff sounds like it's so whistly and sort of, it's a woodwind instrument and like the flute, and then there's like the fluty sort of sounds. It makes it sound like, that's what music on the arse end of nowhere would sound like, like blowing into a bottle, like, like, you know what I mean? It's just very like hick feeling about it. And it's beautiful.
When you were saying about if you watch a film without the score, without the sound, one of the big things of like filmmaking, storytelling in a visual medium is a lot of the time, and again, this sounds like a criticism, but it isn't. It's kind of a lot, film writers and theorists and reviewers and whatever will say this better than me, but a lot of the time, the music of a film or a show, it almost tells the audience what they're meant to feel. And if you change that, it can change the context of a scene, no matter how it looks. In this, it doesn't necessarily do that too much. The music is, in the best possible way, it fades a little bit into the background, and in a way that people think that's what a score's meant to do, but it doesn't usually in a film. You're usually very aware of the music, regardless of your understanding or interest in the score, you're aware of it. In this, a lot of it becomes an almost ambient soundtrack, which, on a selfish point of view, I do a lot of reading. I love a score which, although it has pace and builds tension and has emotion to it, you listen to it and you go, this is obviously a love scene. This is obviously an action scene. It's ambient and, I don't want to say generic, but it's sort of universal enough where I can sit and read a fantasy or a historical book, listen to Mandalorian soundtrack, and it still adds a little something to the experience of what I'm doing. And again, it ties back into what we said near the start about some of the physical acting in this, of the puppets and the people in masks. They don't rely on the music to say, see how he turned round? That's because he's, wah, wah, wah. Oh, he failed. The music is very much its own character. Without...
And maybe they're just very conscious in Star Wars that they don't want to be pointing out things like this is fan service, homage to, this goes back to, because it's with a franchise with such history, good and bad, it's almost, you have to go out of your way not to do that.
Yeah, you have to pick a lane. It's either fan service, the show, or it's, we'll never do anything. This is nothing you've ever seen. And this perfectly strikes a balance of, this is an original story in a universe that you love. For many people, this is kind of what you've always wanted to see, but never quite got. But at the same time, we're going to throw in some characters that make sense, that the fans love. Yeah. And we're going to do right by characters from the films, because as much as this isn't about the Skywalkers, it's not about the Palpatines, it's not about these big families, at the same time, they are an integral part of this universe, and when it's right to do so, they'll be referenced, they'll be included, or they'll show their terrible Snapchat filter face.
It's funny because at this point of the pod, you'd be like, oh, so I highly recommend it, but obviously with it being almost like a retrospective of the season, anyone who's listening to this would have already bought into it. So I think, if anything, let's go the other way. And my sort of closing feeling is echoed what I said before, is that I'm very, very excited after this now to go into that multitude of stuff that's coming out. And I feel like Star Wars is it's about bloody time. It's in a really, really strong position. Yeah. And it's great to see such an original property be there.
Totally agree. We're going back to something we said near the very start, but Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, the Star Wars management side of it, the Lucasfilm, bought the trust back of true Star Wars fans and just general film and TV fans. So they're doubling down with a lot of new series coming soon, and I'm exactly the same. And I'd actually, to echo what you said, I am probably more excited now about what else they do in this vein, in this style, than I've ever been about anything to do with Star Wars itself.
And that's great. I mean, and I think there'll be, it's good for people like me who now are, completely reinvested in it, never actually having turned a back on it. People like you who've now come round to at least experiencing that universe. But you know what? There's going to be kids out there who this is their first foray into sci-fi, or even committing to watching a TV show or a story week by week, and this is their first experience. How many years since the original, and it's still Star Wars that's doing it for people. Yeah.
But
that's brilliant.
If this is your first experience of Star Wars, kids, just to warn you now, buckle up. Because it doesn't get much better than this. It really doesn't. And
also, what are you doing listening to this podcast? But yeah, I think that's brought us to a nice positive end.
Perfect.
To the episode.
Apart from Disney, please, finish off Luke's face. Any final words to leave us with?
Yeah, just remember, guys, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Awesome. Bye. Huge thank you to everybody who has watched or listened, and if you enjoy our podcast, hit follow, hit like, hit subscribe, whatever platform you are on. Rate us, review us, turn on notifications for our next episode, and you'll be really helping us to grow and keep building a great community. Get in touch with us on all the socials via @DRHPod, or you can reach out to us individually through @LewisAlexRyan and @_CharlieFellows.
Boba the Hutt.
Windpipe instrument.